Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and we have something insanely cool to take a look at today. As you can see, we are checking out a Star Ace product. This is the Rhedosaurus from the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. And as you can see, again, this is another of the Ray Harryhausen line, which has been an absolutely phenomenal line thus far from Star Ace. I've enjoyed every single release that I've been able to acquire, and now we have this one, which might be one of my most anticipated overall. And the box art looks really beautiful. You can see we've got a fantastic image there of the Rhedosaurus kind of jumping out of the center of the box. We also have Ray Harryhausen's autograph down there at the bottom, and you can see that there is a color and a mono version, which means you can get one in black and white, and of course color. We have the color version here with us to check out today. Over here on the side, you could see again another really cool image of the Rhedosaurus right here, as well as a smaller image kind of recreating what we just saw on the front of the box. And then over here on the opposing side, you've got a nice image there of Ray Harryhausen working on a model and some information down there underneath. And then the back of the box sports another really cool image of our model, and you also have lots of information on Ray Harryhausen, the model itself, the film, all kinds of stuff like that, as well as an image here showing off the Kraken, which is another release that was, I guess, the release that came right after this one here from Star Ace. So I've waited quite a while to get a look at this beauty. Let's pop it out of the box and do that right now. So first of all, we've got ourselves a little extra here with this. As you can see, we again have the Harryhausen 100 logo right there. And you can also see that we have a really nice area that quite clearly is destroyed as our Rhedosaurus wreaks havoc. And you can also see a car that is quite damaged as well. So a very cool extra as far as that goes. But the star of the show, of course, is our massive Rhedosaurus itself. And we'll go ahead and put this back there as we kind of knock over the backdrop. And I guess we can move it over a little bit, but that is absolutely beautiful, and I'm really impressed with the size. I was not prepared for this to be as large as it is. That tail's really quite long, and I can definitely say that this is the biggest of the Harryhausen line that I have in my collection now, as I have quite a few, but this definitely is larger than any of the dinosaurs or Talos or anything like that I've already reviewed here. It's bigger than the Cyclops, maybe not quite taller, but like the overall mass of the model due to such a long tail length is definitely quite large. And I think it looks beautiful. They definitely did a great job on this, adding in a lot of really nice coloration, some nice realism. Those eyes up there are fantastic on the Rhedosaurus, and I have heard some mixed feelings on this one in the past as far as the skin texture and the scale detail, the way it appears compared to the way it looks in the film. And I will say, I think it looks great. It might be slightly different from the way you see it in the film, but that might be very slight because I don't notice a massive difference. But then again, I'm also not an expert on the Rhedosaurus. I have seen the film quite a few times. I definitely enjoy it from time to time still to this day, but I'm at the same time not a professional when it comes to this particular movie monster, so there may be things that I personally don't notice that others that might be a little more familiar with the appearance and sculpt of the Rhedosaurus. But to me, it looks great and definitely is yet another fantastic addition to this line. So let's jump straight to a closer look at it right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Rhedosaurus, you can see that the detailing and scale, detail, skin texture, everything looks pretty good that we can see up here. We've got some nicely sculpted out nostrils and lots of really nice color variation. I love how much color there actually is on this. From afar, you might not realize how much paintwork is actually applied to this, but there's definitely quite a bit of it here. As you look over the entire head area and you get a nice closer look, you can see quite a bit of different varying greens and browns. You can see like a light brown here running along, but there's also kind of like almost like a glossy darker brown that runs right here as well. And again, those eyes look great. Look at those really nicely painted eyes. They also sport a beautiful gloss coat, so they shine very realistically. But you can see they've done a great job of adding in some nice greens as well as, you know, really nice dry brushing over a large majority of the figure to highlight all of the detail very nicely. Our Rhedosaurus does have the mouth sculpted in an open position, so you can get a good look at the teeth, and you can see all the teeth are painted very nicely, very specifically, and very carefully, and they also have kind of like a nice off-white bordering on a yellow. And on top of that, some almost have kind of like a slight reddish dry brushing, which is really cool to see, or like a reddish brown dry brushing. And they all do kind of have a glossy look, which also helps to add another element of realism to them. You can see the tongue is sculpted there on the inside of the mouth, and everything has kind of like a really nice, like dark pinkish tone. And the entire inside of the mouth also has a nice gloss coat, so that helps, again, to add even more realism. As you lead up here into the top of the head, of course, you can see those classic Rhedosaurus ridges picking up here on the top of the head, and they are sculpted really nicely as well. As you move along, you can see lots of kind of cracks and crevices, really nice fine detail to that area. You can also take notice to some nice skin wrinkling and creasing and stuff as you move back into the neck, especially because the head is kind of facing down, so you can see the skin scrunching up quite nicely in the throat region, but it's also got its head turned to the right, so it would be wrinkling the skin up very nicely right there. And you continue to see that as you move down the course of the neck. Again, skin wrinkles galore, as well as some beautiful dry brushing that's been applied to the model. As you lead down and you reach the bottom of the neck, you can see that our ridges temporarily taper off and disappear before picking back up with a vengeance here right in the shoulder area as they start to get quite large moving down the course of the back. As you continue to move down from the shoulder area, you can see some nice wrinkling, creasing there in the skin texture. Continuing to move down though, you can see a nice bend in the elbow. The elbow itself is present. You can also take notice to the really nice, again, dry brushing they've applied to highlight all of the detail of the Rhedosaurus quite nicely. Moving down into the hand, we've got some really nicely sculpted out fingers, as well as some nicely sculpted and painted nails. They also have kind of a glossy look to them, so they shine pretty nicely, definitely highlighting the nails beautifully. You can also see some creasing in the wrist right there. And then moving back into the stomach region, you can again see how big the scales get, how big, rough, and rugged looking the scales and skin texture of our Rhedosaurus looks here. And I believe potentially this is one of the areas where I've heard people take issue with, because again, they say that this doesn't quite match perfectly to what it looks like in the film. I did watch a few clips from the film recently just to kind of get an idea of what it looks like compared to this version as far as like images I had seen online. And I felt like it looked pretty similar, but I guess maybe I just didn't watch the right clips or something. I'm not too sure, but it looks, again, really good if you ask me. And again, some nice skin detail here running along the lower part of the stomach, as well as some, a small amount of girth in the stomach region as well, making the Rhedosaurus look like it's kind of healthy. You can again see how the ridges here get pretty large, but then they start to taper off and get smaller and smaller as we lead down toward the tail. You can also see we have some nice muscle definition here on the rear leg. Very nicely sculpted out knee. Nice creasing in the skin as well, since the leg is bent. And again, some very nicely sculpted out toes back here, as well as, again, some nice painted nails with some gloss coats added to those nails yet again. And you can really see there's some nice cracks and crevices and stuff within the nails, giving them a very realistic appearance. And also some more color variation. Again, you can even see blacks. You can see some nice black shading right here in the muscle definition, as well as some black shading up here in the stomach region as well. As you lead down here into the tail, you can kind of see more creasing and wrinkling and stuff in the skin, but you can see there's a little area here where the tail kind of like has a small seam, and that's actually because the tail comes disconnected when you first get the model. And I will say it was a little bit of a task to get the tail on mine, but this area is disconnected when you initially acquire the model, which kind of allows you to sort of articulate it. Not really much, but it does wobble a little bit. But as you lead out the length of the tail, you continue to see that very kind of armored-like look to our Rhedosaurus, and you continue to have those ridges running along, as well as, again, that really nice rough and rugged-looking skin texture with that nice dry brushing and quite a bit of variation of color as you lead out the length of the exceptionally long tail. And you lead out here where the ridges kind of pick back up again, kind of like that trademark of the Rhedosaurus, before completely tapering off into a very small point there to the tip of the tail. Looks really cool. The skin detail and everything honestly looks phenomenal as we move through, as I knock over the backdrop there again in the background there. But you can see again more of that really nice dry brushing, as well as just so much beautiful paintwork. You can see more of those dark colorations that have been added to kind of highlight all of the creases as we move out the length of the tail. And look at how cool and reptilian the look of the underside is here with the stomach region of the Rhedosaurus. Again, it is absolutely gorgeous as far as the sculpting and detailing as you move up into the throat. And then if we carefully move it and turn it around and take a look at the opposing side without breaking anything, because again, it is quite large. You can see the beautiful paintwork here of the face, those really big fangs again in the front of the mouth and how nice they're painted, and that really beautiful eye. The eye paintwork on this is absolutely gorgeous. And as we move back, you can actually see kind of like a slit right here, as well as like the gum, and as well as very nicely painted right there. But as you move back, you can see that the head is kind of facing away from us on this side. So you have a little bit of creasing right there, but you can also see that the skin is kind of like bent and stretched because, again, the Rhedosaurus is facing away from us over here. A little bit of creasing here, again, showing that movement of the neck down at the bottom of the neck connecting to the body. You have more incredibly cool, very rough and rugged, very reptilian-looking skin texture as you move down the course of the front leg here. You can see that that leg is up off of the ground a little bit right there. You can see that the hand is kind of like opened up a little as it's about to plant down. You can see some creasing and everything again in the wrist. And you really should hopefully be able to take notice to just how much color variation is applied to this as you move through. There's so many different varying tones. Like you can see dark browns right there on the wrist, lighter browns dry brushed here. You can see darker greens and blacks and stuff highlighting different areas. There's just a ton of really nice paintwork to this model. And then we continue to move down again through the course of the stomach, leading down into the rear leg. The legs aren't really too far off as far as the positioning goes. They're fairly similar on both sides. And then again, you lead out to the length of that extremely long tail, which does have a really nice curve to it. If you look at it from up above, you can see a beautiful, very elegant looking curve to the tail of the Rhedosaurus. This is unbelievably beautiful. And then we've got our little extra here. You can see a lamp has been taken out and knocked down here, and we again have that beautiful Harryhausen logo right there, which I absolutely love. The earthy area is very nicely sculpted. You can see some gorgeous looking texturing to it, as well as again some really nice paintwork. It's been beautifully dry brushed over with a kind of like a light gray, and then you have a dark gray for the primary body, and you could just see so much of the street and everything that's kind of torn up and ripped and destroyed as our Rhedosaurus wreaks havoc. And then, of course, our car, which is completely smashed and dirtied up, which looks also super cool. Very nice looking paintwork to the vehicle as well. And, of course, the car itself, it's such a travesty to see such a beautiful old car destroyed like this, but it is really nicely done, really nice kind of weathering and everything to it as well that they've applied to the model. And you can see as we reach here under the street, again, we have very nicely sculpted out detailing throughout that area as well. So the underside also does again say the Rhedosaurus. This is the deluxe version, which is the only way I believe that you get this. Otherwise, you would just get the Rhedosaurus, and you can see the information here on the underside of the model as well. So beautiful addition to go with a beautiful model. As far as a size goes, and again, it is no joke when I tell you this is pretty darn big. So from the snout to the tail, you're looking at about 20.5 inches or 52 centimeters. And that's just kind of a rough measurement. As far as a height to the top of the tail, about 11 inches or around 28 centimeters. And then to the top of the head, you might not be able to see it too well from where you're at, but right here it's about 10 inches or around 25, maybe a little over 25 centimeters. And then as far as our little extra here, well, there's not really too much as far as the size goes. You're looking at around 5 inches or about 12.5 centimeters one way, and pretty much the same deal both ways actually. So not really going to get too much as far as a height either, but for a size comparison to help give you a better idea of the size, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, who is about to lose his head, as well as Robert Muldoon and the Attack Pack Colovosaurus from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line, next to our Rhedosaurus from Star Ace. And you can really see that, again, like I said, it's a very large model, definitely has a very impressive size to it, and I consistently state that Mr. Paparex is a pretty big figure himself, and you can see that he stands no chance against our Star Ace Rhedosaurus. It is much larger. And then something I've been doing often lately is bringing in just a few randoms that seem to be something that's consistently used by me. We've got the Safari LTDU Tyrannus, the Collect Day Dimetrodon, as well as the Velociraptor up there, the Mattel Extreme Damage version, next to our Rhedosaurus, to yet again show you that this thing is absolutely massive. And then for a comparison that I thought would be a cool one to see, and one that I think a lot of people that are collectors of Ray Harryhausen models would like to see, we actually have the Joe Ladati version of the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, aka the Rhedosaurus, next to the Star Ace version. And I have consistently heard people comparing this version from Joe Ladati next to this one, as far as Joe Ladati's being really accurate and how they differ from the Star Ace version. Now, before we get too close to mine, I must warn you guys, I had painted this and built it a long time ago. In fact, right when I had first gotten into modeling. So the paintwork and everything, not very good on it, but, you know, take that into consideration when we get our closer look here. But let's go ahead and jump up and get a closer look at both together. So you can see here when we get close to the Joe Ladati version, what the scale, detail, and the skin texture and everything looks like on that version compared to the Star Ace version. And I will say there is a bit of a difference when it comes to the appearance of the skin texture and the scale, detail, and everything, but I don't think it's super different. I don't think it's super far off. It just looks a little more like reptilian, like kind of like scale detail, maybe a little smoother as far as the scale detail goes on the Joe Ladati version compared to the Star Ace version, whereas the Star Ace version just looks more rough and rugged as far as the skin texture goes. And there is also kind of a slightly different appearance to the head sculpts. I can say I did take notice to that, but I think both are fantastic versions of the Rhedosaurus. So either way, no matter which version you are interested in getting, you're definitely going to get a beautiful version. But the newest version out, of course, is the Star Ace version. I think the Joe Ladati version might be retired now. I'm not 100% sure on that. And looking at it, I really need to touch this one up at some point and give it some new life. But definitely a really cool comparison to see both of these different versions together. So this brand new Star Ace Ray Harryhausen Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, aka the Rhedosaurus model, is gorgeous. I absolutely love this thing, and it's easily the largest, not only Harryhausen release from Star Ace that I have, I think it might just generally be the largest Star Ace model that I have, period, but it's also the largest Rhedosaurus model I have, which I don't have very many, but it's still the largest regardless. And I think that Star Ace nailed it as far as this one goes. The sculpt is beautiful, really nice, very highly detailed throughout, and very impressive looking at it here in person. And on top of the incredibly beautiful sculpt, they've given it a very nice pose where it looks nice and menacing and is kind of like using its hand to kind of prop itself up on a destroyed car, just creating a really cool visual and scene, kind of taking you straight into the film, which is always a joy because it is a great film. And you can see throughout that you have some beautiful paintwork, which again, you do have the option of getting this really nice fully painted version, or you can go for that kind of black and white version which they have, which I also kind of want, but I did go with this version because I have all of the other ones in the fully painted style. I didn't really want to stray too far from it with this one, but I would like to see the other one in person at some point. Regardless, this one again is gorgeous as far as the paintwork. They've done a lot as far as different tones of color, like tons of different really nice earthy tones of color throughout the entire Rhedosaurus. Beautiful smooth transitions, really nice gloss coats on the eyes and in the mouth, and just in general some really nice dry brushing techniques have been added to really highlight all of the detail. It is a gorgeously done paint job for a gorgeous sculpt. And then of course you also have that beautiful base type area that we have there for the car and the kind of knocked over lamppost and all of that stuff. It looks great, just as beautiful as the Rhedosaurus itself does, and definitely the perfect addition to this model. And of course the fact that it's huge is always a huge plus to me because I love large models like this. So if you are interested in picking this up, I will include a link in the description to where you can purchase this right now. And again, keep in mind this is a limited edition, so it's very important if you want it that you go ahead and grab a hold of it right away. Get your order in before it sells out, because once it sells out, it's going to be a very large pain in the butt to get a hold of. So make sure you place an order for this, grab yourself this beautiful Rhedosaurus, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.